Tim Gallwey.
That's right. In 3, 2. Welcome back to the Smart Nonsense Podcast. I'm Henry, that's Dylan. On Smart Nonsense, we talk about entrepreneurship, self-development, and challenging norms. It's been a while since I've done this. Episode 66, we're having a book club. We are talking about The Inner Game of Tennis, the classic guide to the mental side of peak performance by Tim Gallwey. Actually, now that, this used to be my podcast. It's no longer my podcast, so I don't do these intros anymore. But I know who this book's for. I even went as far. I didn't synthesize this. It came from a blogger.
There he is.
But can I read it off?
Yep.
Okay. This book's for the 15-year-old tennis player who has a real shot at a professional career, but also the 31-year-old struggling actress who can't seem to access her talents during auditions, and anyone who forgot what it feels like to be, quote, out of their mind. I thought that was pretty good.
I mean, the list could go on. It could go.
For sure.
And that's why what's interesting here, this book was originally written in, I think, 1972. And so Tim Gallwey, he's now in his 80s. But just for some context, he was into tennis growing up. He was the captain of Harvard's tennis team. And then he kind of did his own thing. Had this sabbatical where he just wanted to be a tennis coach for a while, learned these crazy lessons about how to actually coach people. And then he took it to book form. And when he went to the publisher was like, all right, this is a how to be better at tennis book. Maybe on a good book, you'd get 20,000 copies sold.
Right.
And flash forward to today, 1 million+ copies.
Yeah.
About tennis.
Yes.
And so why is it more than just a little tennis hacks book?
It's life hacks.
It's life hacks. It's this. I think he was the first, at least in sports, to really pay a lot of attention to the more important game of the two, the more natural game, I should say, which is the inner game versus, say, the outer game, which most people coach. Before we get into it, can we talk really quickly, just because it's still on my mind and I'm still excited about it? This Nick Kokonas deal. This
so random.
It's the most random notification I think I've ever gotten. So Nick Kokonas, we had an episode on it. That had to be like 2 weeks ago that we shot it. And it was one of our first videos in the studio. We're like, Nick Kokonas is awesome. We listened to a couple of his podcasts, do the breakdown. And then we recently released a video. And like 14 hours later, there are 7 views on this video. But one of these views is Nick Kokonas. And how do I know? Because in the comments, and you can see this right now, it's probably at like 14 views. Nick Kokonas is like, this is super weird listening to you talk about me. It's like a random channel, but thanks for the shout out. So maybe this is a new way to get people's attention, is just keyword stuff.
Right. So he got flagged because he's got a Google alert for his name. So like whenever he appears in the news, he knows someone's writing about him. Little did he know, Smart Nonsense on YouTube would be keywording
just like CNN, baby. We're going after everybody. It's interesting.
It's funny. He's got 9 subscribers and 1 video about reserving a spot at his next restaurant.
It's hilarious, but we're going to track him down now. We got him trapped. I didn't think we'd get through Google Alerts. We were focusing on Twitter, but who knows? Maybe Tim Gallwey
leaves Twitter for Google Alerts.
Right. So
wasn't Tim Gallwey all fed up because like he was coaching and his students weren't getting better? And then he did that thing where he just like stopped telling them stuff.
Yeah, basically you look at how normal people coach and everyone have the same.
Wait, this is one thing we might actually be experts on. This is one of the few things. Look at your shirt. Show the people your shirt. We might actually know what we're talking about. That's a disclaimer this time.
Maybe. That's a big, I don't know if we can quite say that, but the main complaint people would have, they go to coaching, you get like an hour lesson and the coach is like, oh, firm up your wrists or like, drop the racket head a little bit and make sure you get that trophy finish, whatever it is.
My coach always said pronate.
Pronate
I
the
still
wrist.
don't know what that means. What the fuck is a pronate? He's like, when you serve, make sure you pronate. I'm like, yeah, right, pronate. That's working
like
really
a
well.
Small bacteria that's been around millions of years.
Pronation. So you heard that too, just out of curiosity.
What?
Pronate.
Yeah,
You got that too?
everyone says it. That's like, I think they got one textbook they all go off of.
It's probably
that's
Tim
the thing.
Gallwey's.
Everyone says this one complaint. I know what to do, but I don't do what I know. It's like, why? Why do I know exactly the theory, but in practice, it just all falls apart? And so Tim, he saw all these coaches, all these crappy results, and he's like, let me just try changing it up. And so he comes in, and his first lesson with this guy who couldn't drop his racket head, he knows, oh yeah, I should keep my racket head low and then finish high, whatever. But Tim's watching him and he never does it. And so finally, I forget if it was a mirror or somehow he recorded him. And the guy just sees, he's like, oh, my racket head. Like maybe I start low, but right before I hit, it comes right back up high. So once he just basically put a mirror in front of this guy. And now he sees himself. Tim gave no instructions. He's literally just like, look at yourself, observe yourself. And this guy instantly improved his form.
That's funny because I forgot about that part of the book. But I remember in all my years playing tennis, when I had the biggest breakthroughs in technique is when someone videotaped me and I saw it. They didn't have to tell me anything. I just saw it. Like my feet are crossed. Like that's pretty cool.
I think that's what we just had. I just talked to Robbie Crabtree, not Apple. And he was saying how with public speaking, and we did this in my persuasive communication classes, just record yourself. I still have a ton of videos of myself giving presentations. Oh, I'm going to link that. Watch the YouTube video because we'll put it there. God, did we say leave a review?
Leave a review.
Didn't.
That's because we don't do this little review game where we talk about reviews.
True, we got nothing going on.
There's no incentive for somebody to leave a review right now.
All right, well, just subscribe. There's incentive to subscribe so you see it on YouTube.
Yeah, that's true.
And you get your Google alerts. Maybe we'll shout you out. So basically, we have all these recordings. You see yourself. We did this too with dating and going out in the dating world. This is actually a massive rift in the dating community, like pickup community, is like inner versus outer game. And the inner game is like, they call it state. So it's like, say you go out to a club and you just like, you're talking to everyone, you're in this state, this flow state, and you just like, you feel like a god. But if you're like super in your head and you're thinking all these tactics, like, oh, I should go up and open with this line or whatever, you're not going to be good. So there's this big rift, and like, it's just interesting because it transcends tennis and everything. So record yourself. He basically just has this mirror in front of the guy. He sees it. He corrects it. And the guy's like, this is better than all the lessons that I've ever had. Like, you're an amazing coach. And they reflected, and Tim's like, well, I literally didn't say anything.
Oh, and then he goes to the symphony, right?
What?
What? What? So taking that, he was like, that was his breakthrough. That was Tim Gallwey's breakthrough. And then he goes to like something Philharmonic or Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And the tubist, the tuba player, you remember this?
Was this in a podcast or what? I feel like...
I think it was in the inner game.
Oh, okay. I heard it. I thought it was from some other source.
So just another reason, and then let's talk about the types of self. He goes to like the symphony orchestra and has someone raise their hand who's having an issue. And it's the tuba player. Mind you, I think it was Tim Gallwey. I could be making this whole thing up. But he knows nothing about music, nothing about playing the tuba, nothing about... Was it? Yeah, I think it was a tuba. Or bassoon. They go back, and what does he tell him? It's like, just focus on...
Well, he asked the tuba player, because he has no idea what makes a good tuba player. He's like, what's holding you back right now? And I forget if it was like...
He said the tonguing.
The tongue, okay. Yeah,
because he couldn't play a bunch of notes fast. He couldn't dictate them with his tongue.
So all Tim says, this is the only form of coaching, doesn't know how to coach music. He's just like, all right, just focus on your tongue. Don't focus on like what you should do, what you shouldn't. Just get like the sensation, the feeling.
Oh, that's right.
That's where your attention goes.
That's right.
And instantly, this guy changes. Everyone can hear it.
Right.
They're like,
the orchestra starts applauding. They're like,
right.
This tuba player has never played that fast.
It's astounding. So literally, that's why Tim Gallwey, I read his book, The Inner Game of Golf, as well. And that's a lot even harder than tennis, because I think tennis, it's a lot more dynamic. So it's easier to get in the flow state, whereas golf, you're in your head 99% of the time, and you're only hitting for like a select, and there's so much like slight changes that screw things up. So he has all these books. He has like 5 or 6 on the inner game. But let's get into the 2 types of self.
I wanted to touch on the flow state. I forget.
Yeah.
I forget. Because it's not really the flow state you're after, right? I think he calls it out of mind in the book. Because, what was the reason? Because if you think of the flow state as being in the zone, and you think that there's like some repeatable process you can do to be in the zone, to get in the flow, then you're going to start thinking too much. And that's when self one comes into play. But what are the two selves? Self one, self two.
So you get two selves. The first one is the one where you think you're the crazy person on the court going around like, Dylan, what the fuck was that? Why'd you swing? You know you can't swing like that. Like, rack it down, move your feet. You're talking to yourself.
It's conscious mind.
Conscious mind.
Boom, baby.
That's the self that's evolved. But if we go back, there's the second self and the more animalistic, instinctual self, the subconscious mind. That's just where your body is in the flow state. It's the rhythm. It's just naturally.
You're relaxed. You're just letting things happen.
Exactly. It's the muscle memory and trusting that. But traditionally, no one focused on this aspect of coaching. So he comes in and he's like, all right, let's just like silence your self one and just focus on the second. Because you think like, take animals or human babies or anything. Like, do you teach a baby how to walk? No, he's just crawling around and then he's looking at people walking. He's like, or she, they're just like, let me experiment with this. And you will learn by just mirroring people that are good. So that's one of his suggestions is just.
I want to read this quote. It's from Naval. It's about that because kids are so good at this. It's called implicit learning, right? Okay. And I just saw this yesterday from Naval and I was like, inner game. Naval says, and I retweeted it here. Naval says, quote, children are happy because 1, they're not self-conscious. 2, they lack a sense of time pressure. And 3, they have no goals. The bottom line is they're living from moment to moment and the mind is not there to interfere in their bliss. And I think what he's saying is their self one mind, that conscious mind is not there to interfere.
It's just not developed.
Right.
They literally can't.
Yeah.
It's just mirror.
That's too, what was so interesting for me is like, I was really great at a lot of things as a kid.
Wow. Cocky.
Just great. Awesome at everything. No, but like in sports and music. And as I aged, so too did my self one mind. And like, I started to question like my ability and like that consciousness. Right. And that's when I got the yips.
What's interesting to me, because you told me a while back, because we basically our graduation, you sang the national anthem in front of probably like 10,000 people. And the rocket's red glare. Yeah. It's crazy. And I'm like, Belky, how do you do this? And you're like, I get nervous. And for you, maybe, I don't know if you always, what's the suppressor of, there's like some drug.
Beta blockers.
Beta blockers.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's interesting because it's basically trying to turn off self one through beta blockers.
Right. So what happened was in high school, I just started getting the yips all the time. And it's because of pressure, right? Putting pressure on things is what we didn't mention. Like self one and self two are always in conflict. And it's about, like you said, trusting self two to quiet self one. And in high school, my self one just got out of hand with the yips, with tennis and with piano. And the thing with piano is when you've got adrenaline pumping and you're performing and everybody's watching you and your hands are doing this, it not only affects your playing right then and there, but then you start to think, oh, everyone's looking at my hands. And then it gets worse. Then your knee starts doing this. So I was like, what do I got to do? Well, I got to take beta blockers. And that basically just... Wow, that's loud music. There's a fiesta going on next door. It basically just subdues that fight or flight adrenaline. And it's great. So then your hands are like totally fine playing piano. The problem is it just adds to this whole placebo thing where then it's like, oh, I took a beta blocker, so I'm gonna trust myself too to perform great. Now, if you forgot to take the beta blocker or you didn't for something, it's a nervous wreck.
Oh my God. I can't imagine.
I wish I never did it.
It's basically like you go into GTA, Grand Theft Auto, GTA, and you get the little cheat code and you plug in the cheat codes. You never learn how to actually play the game and like level up.
And
you
that's
just
no fun.
Cut right to it. And now you're addicted
Yeah.
And it'll be a disaster if you don't take them.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely took him for the national anthem. I definitely take him for piano still. I can't not. It's mind games. It's inner game.
So Belky's a cheater.
Yeah.
Right. But this is basically the alternative that maybe if you had back then, you would have focused more on the meditative
coaching
aspects.
Michael
of it.
Lewis, I know in his podcast, like, because his daughter was having this issue in softball, he got her like inner game coaching or therapy counseling to like focus on that. The problem too was the pressure. I had coaches in high school that were like, if you don't hit this next serve in, you're moving down to second doubles. Or I'd be pitching in baseball. They're like, if you hit me with the next pitch, you're not pitching again. What do you think's going to happen? Hit him in the face with the ball.
I bet you did.
Like, what do you think?
That's why just our entire world now is a competition, especially when it's globalized. It's like, you know that if you're not performing at your peak all the time, you're going down to double A or you're going down to second doubles, whatever it is. And that's just a pressure on people from younger and younger ages. So that's why this whole meditation, visualization comes into play. And basically what you want to do, I guess with tennis, but we can, again, extrapolate to anything. But tennis is just like hone your focus. Just, you want to focus on the ball. And this is something that I do a lot now because my forehand.
We're playing tennis after this.
Yeah, I'm going to smoke you. I am so fucking ready. I don't care. But you want to focus on just one thing. And when, like, he would say focus on the seams of the tennis ball, but then...
Yeah, or your strings in tennis.
Right.
That's why you see every single player walking back to the baseline, like playing with their strings, looking at their strings.
True.
That's what we were talking.
Yeah, you just stay focused on one thing, kind of present in the moment versus like, oh, that was a shitty shot I just hit, or that was a crappy shot. Now all my next subsequent shots are going to be terrible.
Wasn't there a way to reframe those?
This is the one question I have because Tim is big on free from judgment. Like one of the big concepts is just like when you're coaching, you don't want to do anything like, oh, that was a great shot or that was a bad shot, because both imply like sometimes you hit bad shots. It's some form of critiquing your shots. So instead, you just want to observe, like get the feel. What he says is bounce hit. That's for beginners, but I even do it right now with my forehand, especially. I'm just like, the ball comes over the net, bounce, and I hit it. And then it goes bounce, the other person hits it. So you're just super focused on just like bounce, hit, bounce, hit.
Not all the minutia of like the muscle memory stuff that's self too.
Right.
You're like, just the ball's bouncing, bounce, bounce.
Right, because the muscle memory's there. Oh, I didn't mention this in a podcast before, but I love the science of it where your body, what the hell are these cells called? There are some cells that produce myelin and basically just make super highways along your muscles, so that these electrical signals just pass through faster and faster and more efficiently. So trust, you already have the myelin there. You just let your body do its job.
Yeah, I know musicians and athletes have a lot of myelin.
Yeah,
for memorizing stuff too, especially musicians.
Just like
memorizing patterns, like chunks of things.
So basically, just try and free yourself from the judgment. He says is like first come in and just focus on say bounce hit, and then kind of like see where you want the ball to go. And then you can observe if it goes there, but it will. Like it's crazy. I've done this before. I'm like, I want to hit it 6 feet over the net and land deep in the left corner. And like, if you picture the ball, and you'll see golfers do this all the time.
Come on, stop! I'm just touching my knee.
I'm so excited. You see golfers do this all the time, where they're like picturing their shot shape and everything, and they do it because it works.
Right.
So if you just picture it, you're basically giving your body the image.
What's that thing like? If you picture the finish, you're like 60% of the way there, or something, or maybe it's even 90% of the way there.
You ever hear the study with the Olympic athletes, and they had some of them do training, like all they did was training. And then some of them, they did like a mix of training and some mental training. And then the last one was just mental training. What they found was the people doing mental training, whatever degree it was, they performed immensely better than anyone
watching
just doing
tapes or watching other professional athletes play.
All they're doing is just visualizing what's going to happen. And because your body, this is what I love.
It's myelin.
I love this quote. Your body doesn't speak English. All right. Animals, they don't have good language. Maybe they have some signals, but like they all learn from just watching each other. You see the image. That's what a coach should do, is just like show what form they use that works. And then the coachee, whatever you call them, will...
Student,
the coachee, the student, synonyms.
Coachee, baby. Sochi.
I had a kid on my team named Coachee, Sean Coachee.
There you go.
Yeah, so Sean basically needed to just look at the coach. This is what you should do, and your body's going to mirror it, because, again, telling it English, isn't going to help.
Yeah, I had something to say about that, but I forgot.
That's how this usually goes. There was another thing.
What?
Well, one thing that's interesting, because there is this pressure that we just talked about with competition. Like, basically, if you win, then I lose.
Okay.
And people have this huge pressure on them. But Tim talks about, say, surfers. And like, surfers aren't content with like the small, medium-sized waves. Like, they want that big wave. And why do they want it? Because the challenge. They want that big wave because that's where all their skills come into play. So you want the person on the other team, on the other side of the court, that is just a phenomenal player, because they're going to challenge you.
Yeah, I saw that in a lot of tournaments. It's funny, you rise to the occasion for that challenge, and then I'd play some Yanton from around the block who like has never played tennis before, and I can't hit the ball. I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
That happens. It's funny because I think tennis might be unique in that, because it's always one-on-one, and you will drop to, like, when I play you, I drop so much, and it's just, that's the way it goes.
Scoreboard. Okay, here's an interesting thing. Just like playing with friends, playing in college, playing around. It goes back to the pressure of coaches. Like, I've played tennis for years, and my best tennis comes from periods of time where I don't have such like one-on-one coaching. You know, it was like the week after winter break, or during winter break in high school, when like I was just playing with friends. It's like, you know, when we were playing, like when coaches are around, my self-one just goes out of control.
That's what's interesting to me. So the foreword of this book was written by Pete Carroll, who coaches the Seahawks.
Okay.
And Pete's like, I have at least 10 copies at all time, just because I'm giving them out like crazy. This book is so fundamental. You have Al Gore gave it to his entire team in the 2000s when he was running for presidential elections.
I was like, Al Gore owns what team?
Or Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr is just vehemently in favor of this book. And so few coaches practice it. Like, you see so many people focus on the technique, and I think it's silly. I think it transcends to everything. Just like, stop yelling at yourself. That's silly.
And yelling at your players. That's equally silly.
So basically this book is like, how do you meditate? Just focus. Like with tennis, it's okay, focus, bounce, hit, and then focus on your breath after that. And so doing that, like hockey, for example, it's so fast paced that I never had to worry about this. Like, I wouldn't get the yips in hockey because you don't have time.
Right.
To
I
think.
wonder if it's the downtime. Well, it obviously is. Yeah. It's like those water breaks when you're sitting on the bench, or when you're walking to the next hole in golf. I feel like hockey and soccer are unique in that sense. Or it's just, you just act, you're letting your limbic brain, just your subconscious self to just go because you have to.
So anytime you're coaching or giving advice to someone, it's just lead by example and just be like, hey, watch what I'm doing. And then you try and do it yourself. That's the first step. And then maybe you notice like, all right, this is fundamentally where Henry's messing up. And you're like, okay, Henry, when you're hitting the ball or when you're doing whatever you want to change, say like, for example, with dating, we give guys advice on body language a lot. And like, oh yeah, don't cross your arms, or like, don't, I just be super close to the girl, or like, don't mirror. All this shit that just people would get in their head and they just do exactly what we're saying not to do. But then we're like, all right, just forget it. Just go out and just like try and have a fun time. And when they have a fun time, like now they're the cool guy and they're like, naturally this stuff happens. So that's what you want to do, is just like focus on one thing that doesn't have like a good or a bad. It's just like, I don't know, be the cool guy, or just like focus on the feeling of the ball hitting a racket, whatever it is. But don't say like, oh, this is a bad feeling, that's a good feeling.
Or like explicit things like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Oh, I messed this up. Like, that's conscious stuff. You got anything else?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to mention.
It's a quick read that all ends up kind of being like. I at least was able to figure out like self 1 and self 2 pretty quick. I don't remember a lot of the. You know what I'm trying to say? Like it just kind of goes on about the same thing, and it's a short book.
Yeah, it's just such a simple concept.
Yeah.
I like books basically usually have one key takeaway and the rest is just solidifying it in your mind. But it is cool because now anytime I'm with someone that's trying to be better and they're pissed off at themselves, I'm just like, breathe, dude, breathe, and just focus on like one aspect of your game. And ideally record yourself or see yourself somehow. And you're going to get better.
Sounds pretty good to me.
I think that's everything I had.
I was just thinking now, I'm trying to think of some tennis players that I think are bad. I know, yeah, some are just kind of, I forget.
It's a really strong ending to this podcast. Well, that's I guess it for all of the inner game of tennis. It's not just about tennis.
Just breathe, because if you can get yourself to, I'll bring the energy home.
Yeah.
If you can get yourself to quiet self 1, you're going to be less judgmental. You're going to be happier. You're going to be more confident, and you're going to perform better.
I love it. Just focus on the feel. Just you let your body take over. That's
Relax.
it. All right. That was episode 66, I believe. I think we won't see you until Steph. We have an interview, or I have an interview with Steph.
You won't see
Smith.
me for a while? Who's Steph Smith?
I just read her book. I'm in her course right now. She's just awesome in terms of writing and content marketing in 2020.
That's true. Maybe you'll let me back in these interviews.
Maybe you'll learn something. God damn.
Leave a review, subscribe, and send this to someone, right? Like, just
do
one
something
person.
to help. God damn. I mean, I don't know if anyone's getting value out of these. If anything, it's just us learning more about the books.
Can't
I'm about to
complain.
smoke
Really can't
Belky.
complain.
Actually, subscribe just for this reason.
Yeah.
We're going to give a debrief next week on how much... Belky, I don't even think you're going to get more than 10% of the points.
Really?
I'm
In
just
our
in the headspace.
3 tiebreaker game?
Yeah.
Okay. I just blacked out. This happens like an ADD thing. What I wanted to say was...
Everyone already left the video.
No, don't leave. Don't leave, because I have something to say. I have something to say right now. If not, it's going to make this edit take just a little bit longer because I need a minute. I like this podcast. I like this podcast a lot. You want to know why? Because when I first read this book, I read it really fast. And I remember like I was running while reading it and I wasn't really paying attention. We come here on the pod and now I'm like, oh, self 1, self 2. Now I feel like I can talk about it moving forward because I sat down for 45 minutes and reviewed what the book was actually about. And that's why I love this podcast.
No.
See ya.